Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. Stop me if you've heard this one before. America needs black people to save it. Again. Oh yeah, that old saw, it's back. Jonathan putting on his Capehart is telling black people to put on our capes because his white paymasters say so. Well, I only have one question for him. What's in it for us? Capehart told us to vote for Biden last year, and Jim Crow Joe made plenty of promises to black folks. A so-called police accountability commission at the presidential level, a lift every voice plan that was supposed to help people of color, which means maybe one or two black people. Biden also said he'd make sure black people were listened to when he took office, but no sooner than the election results came in on November 3rd than Jim Crow Joe vanished. He refused to tell us to our faces that he was going back on all the phony promises he'd made. Instead, he had one of his press secretaries type up a written statement to be given to the white media. She didn't even have the nerve to say it herself. Police Accountability Commission, he was abandoning that idea. He simply didn't have the time. He said Congress should handle that. Nancy Pelosi said she didn't have the time either. As for Lift Every Voice, neither Biden nor Kamala Harris have said a word about it since the election. And conveniently, nobody in the media, especially not the safe Negro bootlicks like April Ryan, Joy Reid, or Jonathan Capehart, have made an issue out of this. And as for listening to black people, Biden has gone about his business of reinforcing white supremacy as if we didn't even exist. Hell, even geriatric clowns like Negro Jim Clyburn can't get their phone calls returned. Though as old as Clyburn is, I'm willing to bet he's still sending telegrams. And yet, after all that, here we are a year later, and Jonathan Capehart of all people has the nerve to tell us that we need to turn out to help the Democrats stay in power in Virginia. Well, what happened the last time we listened to Capehart? Lies and broken promises. That's what. Of course, he doesn't say a word about any of that. Capehart started off his little op-ed by saying that black voters are what matters, but in the exact same sentence he specifies that the voters who truly matter are black women. So yet again, these are Democrat shills hoping to stroke black women's egos and drive some sort of gender wedge in the black community. Well, we've seen this little strategy before. In Alabama, black women put Doug Jones into the U.S. Senate in 2017. But rather than acknowledge who put him in office, Jones only gave grudging mention to black people in his election night victory speech. And after he went to Washington, black folks didn't hear from him again until he was running for re-election last year. And Democrats were surprised that he lost. Capehart knows his job is to prove that he can corral and control the black vote. That's what he's there for. And he thinks that he can play on some enmity between black women and black men. He's not a woman, but he thinks that as an LGBT man, he can do some variation on the sister girl routine. I'm sure Joy Reid has gassed his head up on that one. But it's a brand new day. Thanks to the black grassroots, the question is, what's in it for us? We're not thinking about the next election. We're asking, what did you do for us after the last one? The Democrats and their black bootlicks don't have Trump on the ballot this time to scare black folks to the polls. And while it was nice to use the election in Alabama to embarrass Trump 4 years ago, that election is in the past. Black people demanded to see tangible rewards for their vote in 2017, and we got none. Doug Jones kept black voters at arm's length during his campaign, and he ignored them altogether once he took office. And black voters punished him by remaining home on Election Day. Democrats are ultimately trying to pivot to incorporate a new voter base into the party, one meant to replace the black vote who, in the Democrats' view, has broken bad on them. Black people are clearly malfunctioning voters because we're making demands and we're sticking to those demands. They can't trot out any civil rights retreads or any black bootlicks to get us off of these demands. Or to tell us the situation's too dangerous for you to be making all these demands right now. We need to focus on getting those Republicans out of office. The situation's too critical. It's too dangerous. You got to stop making demands. You're endangering everything by making these demands. You can't require anything for your vote. You just need to do as we say. More and more black people are folding their arms and saying no. Elections are a business transaction, full stop. You want our vote? It must be made clear what we're going to get. But as in the case of Jim Crow Joe, if you decide to make promises to us and then break those promises afterwards, not only do you lose our support, the rest of your friends won't be able to get our vote either. But I find it particularly galling to have Jonathan Capehart of all people lecturing black folks. Well, let me be specific. He did say that his op-ed was addressed to black women in specific, that black women need to vote. Black women need to save America, because that's why black women exist, don't you know? They don't exist for themselves. They exist so that they can make sure these good white liberals get to have things their way. This is the guy, by the way, who wrote an op-ed in the same Washington Post saying that black folks didn't need reparations. All we really needed is an apology. Never mind that black women overwhelmingly want reparations. Capehart himself, however, doesn't. He got himself a zaddy, so as far as he's concerned, that's all he needs white America to do for him. He got himself a white man, and that's good enough. This is the guy who's saying black women need to turn out for Terry McAuliffe. But in his little diatribe, he makes sure not to mention Biden's broken promises, nor the fact that McAuliffe failed to produce anything tangible for black people the last time that he was governor. This is what I told you the Democrats were going to be up to weeks ago. It's going to be nothing but fear-mongering and scaremongering. Black voters were angry at the 4 years of blatant disrespect and race baiting from Donald Trump, but Trump's not on the ballot this time. And no matter how obnoxious these Trump wannabes are, the problem for the Democrats is black people can see these guys aren't Trump. The only way you're going to get black people to the polls this time is by offering tangibles, the very thing that they're doing all they can to speak around. Yes, sir, the Democratic policy of don't make any promises is clearly still in force. A lot of black voters made excuses to vote for Biden, flying in the face of common sense and the clear evidence. But it seems that at least a number of them are now starting to have buyer's remorse, or should I say Biden's remorse. They're now looking and feeling very foolish for having been played for fools. Not all of them, but it seems enough of them, certainly more of them are. And all of this lip service and word salad that's coming from the white media and the black bootlicks is doing nothing to make them think that maybe, just maybe, they should play the fool one more time. After all, Democrats at this very moment control the White House and both houses of Congress. Yet when it comes to black people, they're completely deadlocked. The only thing we hear from them is all the stuff they can't do. Every time we come to them and say, here's what we want, here's what we need, all they do is tell us we can't do anything. Yet they had no problem finding millions of dollars for Afghan refugees and money for illegal aliens. Right now, Biden and the Democrats are planning to give $450,000 to every illegal alien who claims that their family was separated during the Trump years. The government says that could add up to $1 million per family. Now, this is the same Democratic Party that tells you and me there's no money for reparations, that it would be unfeasible. And yet here they are. Instantaneously, they can find all kinds of millions and millions of dollars for people who aren't even U.S. citizens. This is part of recruiting these other groups to be on Team White Supremacy. First, you haze them, then you tell them they're on the team. Black people who the U.S. government helped to murder the family members of during the national genocides that took place 100 years ago, all of those black townships that were ethnically cleansed, we're talking about mass murders taking place here, not merely under the nose of the U.S. government, but oftentimes with the eager support and certainly with the protection of the U.S. government. And yet, even though you got some of the survivors who are still alive today, the U.S. government isn't talking to them about anything. For 100 years, these survivors have demanded justice. and they haven't gotten so much as a reply. This from successive Republican and Democratic administrations. So what exactly are we voting for again? These illegal aliens are going to be getting $1 million per household from the same Joe Biden who's telling black folks, I ain't got nothing for you. Has there been some sort of national movement that's necessitated these illegals getting anything? No, it's just a matter of this is in white supremacy interests, and that's what they're going to do. There's a racial pecking order in place, and they need to make sure that they artificially elevate other groups over black people. That's what's going on here, what's always gone on here. The government has no money for the people who had helped to mass murder and who had stripped of their land and possessions. But they've had absolutely no problem whatsoever finding hundreds of millions to give to illegal aliens and to bring Afghan immigrants here to make them citizens too. So what the hell are black people supposed to be voting for again? Capehart doesn't say. He thinks if he talks around that issue and just focuses on so-and-so is as bad as Trump, you need to be really scared, then black people, black women, will quake in their boots and just obey. 60 years ago, Stokely Carmichael said, all the scared niggas are dead. Well, these days, judging by the increasing lack of black voter intimidation, it seems all the scared Negroes are bored. Well, Jonathan Capehart should be worried. The only reason he's got that little TV show on MSNBC is because he's not a straight black male. They figure he can try to wrangle black people to do what his white bosses want, and the rest of the time he can be a dependable voice for LGBT issues and whatever else white liberals are obsessing about. That's his job. Well, my job is to make sure black people's interests are heard, and more importantly, obeyed. Black people's job is not to save America. When you have a nation so sick and depraved and degenerate and self-destructive that you are reduced to depending on 13% of the population, the bottom 13%, the most powerless, the oppressed in the society. Oh, wait, he's talking about black women, so that's not 13%, that's 7% of the population. 7% of the population is supposed to save the other 93%? Tell me something, what has been done to help save Sandra Bland? What's been done to help save Tatiana Jefferson? Or Ayanna Jones, or Breonna Taylor? Black women need to save America. I got a better idea. When the hell is America going to start saving black women? Yeah, a lot of black women have been murdered with impunity on the watch of Democrats. And here you got Democrats who are in the White House and the family of Breonna Taylor's being told, well, you better hope you get yourself some sort of settlement from the city because that's all you're going to get. And yet you're depending on the same black women who these Democrats preside over in these cities. It's Democrats who run these cities, who run these counties, in many cases run the states that are killing black women and making sure to protect the killers. And you don't see the Democrats saying we need a full court press to get anybody out of office who is not prosecuting the killers of black women. They're not saying that. Instead, they're not saying anything. And neither is Jonathan Capehart. He doesn't say anything about it either. Democrats can do no wrong because that's who he gets his daily bread from. Hell, with clowns like this, who needs a David Clark or a Clarence Thomas when you got scum like Jonathan Capehart? And yet here he is talking to the 7% of women who are the most oppressed, who are the most deprived in the society, the ones who have been ground into the dirt by the very white paymasters who Jonathan Capehart licks the boots of, and he's lecturing them about how they have an obligation to save the 93% of the nation. Make that make sense. When you have a country where the overwhelming majority are hell-bent on destroying it, then I think it's a bit much to ask a mere 7% to save it. And it goes from being unreasonable to being an abomination when that 7% haven't gotten anything for all the other times they saved the nation. After all, in 1992, wasn't it black women who handed Bill Clinton the presidency and saved the country from another 4 years of Reaganomics under George H.W. Bush? Then in 2008, after the financial crash, wasn't it black women who helped to put Barack Obama in the White House and save the country then? And then in 2020, same thing. So it seems as if black women have saved the country time and time again, and what have they gotten for all of their heroism? They keep putting on the cape and flying to the rescue, and What have they gotten? What they've been told is these illegal aliens can get paid and you can get killed in the streets. You know, it seems the only thing black female voters have been saving is Democratic politicians from having to go home and Jonathan Capehart from having to go get a real job. Black media only exists because of you. If you value the kind of uncompromising commentary and insight we offer, you can hit us up on CashApp. The link is in the description. Good day, and be one.